Does anybody even remember this saga? M, heart to blackened heart on the road. If you would like to hear some of the previous heart to hearts regarding M and myself, well, there's a playlist in the description. 7 of these videos made thus far, and I just seem to keep digging them up. There was a peace treaty period that I haven't gone into much details about before. This was months after M was banished from the D&D group, but it was before the Pirate Festival incident. I forgot what I titled it when I mentioned it here. Yeah, there's a lot of these posts. I don't think we've covered the pirate incident. M wanted to get drunk so badly, and I was a selfish person for not assigning him a designated driver, or for being super happy for the rare and exquisite opportunity to babysit him while he became a drunk, wine-sipping yuppie a-hole in public again. But that is another story, and it took place after this one. Honestly, M seems like the kind of guy that you'd have to get like a little drunk to even be around, and then if he's drunk too, that's no good. So this was a long car trip, or at least it felt long, because I was in M's SUV. He was one of the holdouts of that fad, the overcompensating white guy that wants an armored battle bus. Yeah, for the zombie apocalypse, bro. He chose the music selection, of course. He told me why he liked each song. Because they don't mean anything. Which made me wonder if he had an allergy towards sincere expression. Honestly, from what I've seen in the previous parts, I will confirm that. And of course, he got lost along the way to where we were going. And when I asked if we could stop for directions, he said, "I ain't no woman." So we were an hour late. Bio truths are a powerful thing. At one point, he wanted me to call his wife and tell her that we'd be late, and I used his phone as he directed and did just that. And then I asked if she could use her laptop to help us find, and the phone was grab-slapped away. It's the principle of the matter. We have to stay lost. God, you really are an idiot, aren't you? M had that sucked-in lips, wide-eyed look, so I didn't press the issue. His wife begged me to please be patient with him, and I believed at the time that it showed integrity to not react to every little outburst of his. I mean, he's definitely looking for a reaction, so maybe it's well advised. During this extended driving period, M wanted to know about my life. Or more exactly, he wanted to hear a story so he could pick it apart and make correct suggestions, as was his tradition, of course. I wasn't in the mood, but it was that or a much louder repetition of Rob Zombie's "Yeah!" collection. Which, according to M, was totally great because it wasn't about anything, man. He asked about my girlfriend, and I told him some non-prying details. He wasn't satisfied. Of course he wasn't. And this is where the wisdom started. Oh yes, drink it in. You gotta have some of these heifers waiting by the door. Oh right, you're so sensitive and you can't even say He said sensitive in the screeching straw feminist voice. It's such a contrast to his fake deep voice that the ear begs for mercy. I said that he could say that word, and I meant to add that it didn't offend me, but it wasn't really doing him any favors either. This was a peace treaty, not a diplomatic marriage after all. I only got so far as "you can say that word" before I was cut off yet again. Good. I thought you were becoming a sorry, but my brain steamed and simmered within my skull. Nothing good comes after a sorry, but in real time, he continued, playing those little games with the furries and weirdos and brodies and crap. That's not normal. OP says exactly the right thing. Normal is highly subjective. Yeah, it's really more of a spectrum of normality, isn't it? I was cut off again. Hey, don't do that! Stop trying to talk down to me. I mean, that's difficult when you're such a mental midget. Don't say that. He did this little swerving motion while driving that worried the hell out of me, so I braced myself, and he continued, I'm trying to do you a freaking favor and help you. This is where he said it, heart to heart. I know you're smarter than that. You're wasting your life. I cut him off. I'm actually pretty happy with how things are going, and that's really what matters at the end of the day. I wasn't happy to be in the SUV with him, but yeah, you know what I mean. You're doing it again. You're so goddamn defensive. Listen, you haven't really lived yet. You have no idea what you're missing. Oh, please enlighten me, master of truly living. I looked at him, stressed and tense and volatile, and my skepticism must have been visible because he got more tense as he spoke. I humored him, but with a skeptical tone. Okay, let's say I did it your way. What would I do first? He mentioned something that he was very fond of. Pub crawls, he called them. Apparently there was a recurring zombie pub crawl as a local thing that happened regularly, which was exactly what it sounded like, essentially. Dressing as zombies and going from bar to bar. Zombie alcoholics, zombaholics? It's kind of poetic if you think about it. If it wasn't anti-advertised by M, it might have been interesting enough to discuss, but remember, I was on the road, in M's armored supplement, and he drove more recklessly if he felt offended by my responses. But I wasn't the zombie, of course. Yes, of course not. M would never be a zombie. Zombies are mindless, and M, well, he's a genius. Zombies are dead and rotting, and M is just immortal and everlasting, and don't you dare bring up his receding hairline. Advice for life. He continued, I was a mad scientist. He must have heard me groan because it was such the M expected thing to say, but he continued, raising his voice, and I delivered a zombie baby from a zombie pregnant woman. It was freaking amazing. What are you talking about? All this is normal to you, M? Okay. So you were a zombie obstetrician? He sucked in his lips, eyes bulged again, and then he sped by the car on the highway next to him. Oh yeah, he had some road rage. Do you always have to do that? You always have to have some smart thing to say? Can't you just show some freaking respect for a change? No, I said. It wasn't clever. It wasn't witty, but I had had enough. I'd had enough of M for one day, and we weren't even where we intended to go quite yet. He slouched and sighed and then muttered, You're wasting your life. Yes, as opposed to the mindless bar crawl. Truly, that is the pinnacle of human accomplishment, right? I had fun when we arrived because I kept as far away from M as I could. I went home in his wife's car because, of course, he wanted to stay because there was some drinking event that was going on later in the evening, and his wife wanted to go home. I asked, who is driving M home? His wife said, M is driving M home. I said, that's a bad idea, wife. He isn't getting drunk, he's just socializing. He's a grown-up. Is he, though? You mean he's a grown man? I said with a sour tone, mocking one of his favorite things to say. Oh, Pete, please. You're too hard on him. He is trying so hard to get along with you, and you're just holding a grudge. I dropped the issue. Maybe I was holding a grudge. You be the judge. I don't think you're holding a grudge at all. I see exactly where you're coming from. I think this wife is enabling him. And if dude gets into a crash while drunk driving, I'm sure she'll have some pretty deep regrets about her decision to just, let him drive because he's a grown-up. Like, you both being reckless as hell. Very uncomfy, but I don't know. You can't save somebody from their own demons, you know what I'm saying? Anyways, we'll move on to the next story and see what we got. M, douche, and the belly drummer. M discovered most of his neckbeardisms entirely on his own with no assistance from the internet. Kind of impressive. His misogyny went back to grade school at the very least, and his racism manifested in high school, and he found his Lord and Savior Heinlein sometime during college. He did learn a few things from others, and one of them was the belly drum. Bro, play Wipeout. Bro, play Wipeout, bro. Bro. There was a washed up, washed out, aging former frat boy that used to hang out with M. For the purposes of this story, I will call him Douche. Mind you, he was, at the time, more than twice M's age. Yeah, that's really creepy. He's trying to keep his youth alive by hanging out with the youngers. Pretty sus, not gonna lie. I got to know Douche in my early college years, specifically because I was strapped for cash, and Douche was barely an employee at one of those tax filing companies. He had a job for me, sorting his paperwork. Sounded simple at the time, but then I learned what the paperwork was. Credit card notices on top of credit card notices. His credit card notices warning about failure to repay balances. He had, and I do not even exaggerate, over a dozen credit card companies all chasing him by mail. God, what a disaster. And he offered to pay me to sort the stacks of bad debts paid after bad debts. He'd be a room away in his office while I was there on the weekend where no one else is, slapping his belly loudly and shouting at whatever was happening on the football game that he was watching. Oh, I thought this was like a hazing thing. He's doing it to himself? I don't know if that's better or worse. I never actually got paid for the sorting work, so I quit after a few weekends, but M found the belly drumming thing and of course started doing it too. Started hanging out with Douche because he was so funny to boot. He was so funny that M started copying his shouting, belching, and other mannerisms, most specifically the belly drum. I guess it could have also been called the belly clap, but I had to settle on a single title. It's this thing he did where he'd cup his hand and slam it over his belly rapidly, making something like an applause sound, but louder and more obnoxious. The aging frat boy was hanging out with people glaringly younger than him, and considering how aggressive yet lonely he seemed, I feel like it might have been looking into M's future. I guess we'll see on that. So when did M belly drum? Whenever there was meat in front of him. It was never to his satisfaction though, especially in later years when his wife would prepare it, and yes, he found the Reddit steak jerk all on his own. You burnt this raw animal flesh, whoa man! Loud belly drumming. Something like that. He'd also drum his belly loudly if a football game was on TV, copying Douche. If his friend was at whatever event it was, Douche practically lived in M's dad's house, but he also followed M and attended just about all of M's barbecues and wine tastings. Then the double belly drumming could be heard as far away as the driveway from inside of the house. I mean, that's a positive sign to me that you just need to pop the car into reverse. Be like, you know what? I don't think we're going over to his house today. Why didn't I bring up this dude and the belly drumming at some point before? Well, it seemed like too long a sidetrack to really tie into any other story, but where M went, if there was meat or something that needed insecure, overcompensating self-validation, then the belly drumming wasn't far away. Edit. I found out after some time I was working and not being paid by Douche that he was also escaping a messy divorce. I had to hear at length what is now called the married red pill, or merping. Everything wrong with his life was the dragon's fault, and he needed to slay her to get visiting rights to his kids, so on and so forth. Urban Dictionary seems really confused as to what merping actually is, so I'm just gonna believe that that's correct from OP. I don't really know. What I do know is that choosing the person that you're gonna marry is one of the biggest financial decisions that you can make in your life, and I think the credit card problems were probably at least brought up during the divorce proceedings, right? This didn't come out of nowhere. Even if it wasn't for all the dude's troubles with money, he seems like a suspended adolescence man baby that really needs to learn some hard life lessons, and even while he's going through those hard life lessons, he can only see himself as a knight that's out to slay a dragon. God, I can only imagine how it is another half decade down the road. Terrifying. We'll jump into another story and see how that one goes right now. M. Star Trek Online doesn't have enough. This particular story is not an in-person story, but rather a long-distance one, at least until the very last part. Well, that's merciful, at least. When it came out, and for a few years after, Legacy of Romulus and the weeklies that led up to it were probably the high point. I was a regular player of the Star Trek Online. You guys ever play that Star Trek Online? I've had a few people try to get me into it. Lord knows I don't need another MMO. Early on, well before it became free to play, I was even a lifetime subscriber, and I got my money's worth from it. I haven't logged in for a long while. Delta Rising was a flop for me, but if I did, my microtransactions currency stipend could probably get a lot of nice things. One of the reasons that I don't play any longer is that M plays. Of course he does. We've got to find some way to keep that E-peen waggling. Look at how big it is! I paid for the most digital pixels. I guess all pixels are digital, whatever. M doesn't just play, he's the kind of player that Starfleet Dental was made to heckle. How bad was and is he? Well, off the top of my head, he has about 8 characters, last I checked. All of them have the same name with slight additions to them. They are all his real life name or a vaguely sci-fi alteration of it. Oh yes, his creativity is well established. They all look like him, only a hint younger and more chiseled. All have his hair and eye color. All of them are human. Even his KDF characters were human by using the custom alien option. I mean, all that don't sound too bad, you know? It's your game, you play it how you wanna. I played a human paladin for many years on the old World of Warcraft.
Big whoop, wanna fight about it?
He explained this exhaustively in his biographies, and wanting to show me eagerly before I made it quite clear that I wasn't interested. For each, yeah, they were all him. And not just him, but the him that he is now in real life. Only an immortal, trans-dimensional psychic demigod that borrowed Dr. Manhattan's gimmick up to, but not quite including the blue. That would probably, in his eyes, make him an alien freak degenerate. So he had all those alts almost exclusively for Drozana. For non-Star Trek Online players, Drozana is where people tend to hang out, until one Neckbeard's Orion Fuda could hook up with another Neckbeard's Trill Fuda, and yeah, they're basically everywhere. In his case, he was playing regularly, trying to bag aliens, and that's about it. It's like Goldshire in WoW. I've seen it before. Night elves dancing on top of the mailbox. Somebody get me out of here. He called me a few times on the phone to complain that there weren't enough skimpy costume options, snort, and that ship interiors weren't customizable enough. I mean, they do kind of suck. And that, oh, why wasn't the bed more usable? What do you need it for? Lie down, stand up, jump on top of it if it makes your life feel more fulfilled. The worst part to me was when he invited me over with a bribe of sorts. I used to fall for those a few years back, and he wanted me to explain to him what a Betazoid was. I like the powers they have, but like, are they alien freaks? I mean, do they have weird blotches I'm not seeing, or some fruity hippie culture? He wanted their powers, but was afraid that they weren't normal enough for his trans-dimensional super being self to manifest as. I told him the following, or something like it. You better stick to human, because that's the only thing that you accept unless you're killing it or banging it. Screw you! I don't always bang in this game. I mean, I would. And then his voice deepened a notch. But it doesn't have enough of these heifers. I assume most people playing Star Trek Online don't want to be your heifer. They're there to play a game, or to roleplay as a Star Trek character like a Klingon or something. Oh, how he blew up. He slammed his hands down so hard on his armrest that the chair bounced and rolled back as he stood up. He did his wide-eyed, sucked-in lips, raging gorilla face, and I stood my ground because this all was not new to me anymore. Listen, you freak, I don't need some PC culture BS like a warrior race of redacteds. Yeah, he said something about Klingons, but he still bragged about banging them in in-game messages. Or some token diversity crap. I just want to play normal characters. I think we covered this before. Normality's more of a spectrum. It's too deep. He doesn't get it. Normal as in you. This piece of trash, I swear to you, quoted Malcolm McDowell's character on Star Trek Generations. Normal is what everyone else is and you are not. That doesn't even apply here. Look at your character list. Not everyone's a freaking furry or some weirdo who wants to play as a robot. I want to play as a robot. If that makes me weird, I will wear that hat proudly. Well, he did have me there. My main character was carefully designed, reflective-eyed off blue-skinned android using the custom alien template. I didn't try to be Data +1, I just sort of liked the basic gimmick. Role-playing is generally about trying to be someone else. That's the whole point. I'm not some friggin' loser. I like who I am. Would you stop disrespecting me when you come to my house and mooch off my stuff? I can stop coming to your house, gladly. You invited me, remember? I turned to leave, and he didn't directly shove me, but he pushed the door so close behind me that it sort of scooped me out onto the front steps. I started my car to leave, and even with that door shutting thing, he got out onto the front yard in his 50s dad bathrobe just to flip me off as I left. What a grown-up, mature man who's definitely secure within himself and his life. It's like a lie that he tells himself, and he's just said it so many times that he can't see beyond it, you know? These are not the actions of a secure man. These are the actions of a man who's trying to be a man, but has no idea what men are supposed to be like. I'd like to ask OP about like their parental influence. Did daddy leave home at a young age? I don't want to, drag out the trash barrel and go digging through it, but I don't know. I think M gripped onto the belly drumming guy in the last story as a sort of stand-in father figure. I just don't think that there was much of a male influence in that home. And if there was, it wasn't ideal. But that's just all armchair psychology. Let's knock one of these stories out, one more. Because like I said, I keep digging them up. There seems to be no end to them. But I'll do my best, so let's jump on into it. M. Novel editor, Proto Puppy. One incredible thing about M was his ability to predate reactionary neckbeard causes years, even decades before I had heard about them anywhere else. Granted, he never lets go once he grabs on, so for some reason he still praises any show that has the bravery to have a white dude cast in a role where he kills brown people and looks down on stupid females. Why? Because it's about time there's a normal guy instead of some token PC bull. Yeah, normal guy. White guy is normal. For everything else, they're all tokens. I'd like to know what planet this dude is living on. Like, this has really only happened within the last decade or two, and really, even then, it doesn't happen that often. There's almost a century of cinema full of white guys. Maybe pass the ball a little bit, it's fine. Anyway, Related to that eternal war with political correctness was his desire to read one of my early and admittedly embarrassing works of fiction, a science fiction novel involving a future civil war between Earth and a Martian colony after a minor uprising successfully took over the infrastructure and orbital assets of the Martian colony. Oh, and when Red Faction the video game originally came out, I was both elated and frustrated. That's the first thing I thought of. Damn it, they beat me to it. Of course, it became worse when I became a bit better read and realized that every new idea I had was already done and done better by someone else. Yeah, maybe, but you can put your own spin on it. Come on, dream big! I also learned I sucked at scientific realism, and a lot of the fun stuff I wanted, piloted starfighters, ground wars like something later shown in the PlanetSide game, would be off-putting to the powerful realism snob demographic, but I guess that's getting off topic. M heard that I was writing this novel. He seemed very interested, even excited, and he offered to edit what I had written so far. Nope, I'm good. I'll pay a professional thanks. If you read my instead of X, could it be Y story, you might see where this is going, but this time with a political twist. I guess we'll get to that one in the next episode, or the one after that, or the one after that. I'm not even joking, there's so many of these M stories. The orbital research lab that gets hijacked by Martian separatists, instead of having MacGuffin technology in it, it should be like some stupid waste of taxpayer money instead. Like trying to make pandas made in space, and then they can splatter the pandas across the module. It'll be so funny. I'll admit, I'm kind of on board with that idea. I do think it is slightly funny. The landing scene with the starfighter, instead of crashing because of sabotage, Martian sympathizer undermining the Earth war effort, it should crash because it was piloted by some dumb bimbo who got in there because of affirmative action. Women can't drive. Okay, see, now you're not even trying anymore. It's like hardly even clever. M threw a fit with my dismal attempt to include some other part of Earth's population other than Anglo-Saxons or passably resembling Anglo-Saxons. Why do you have a redacted here? Fine, if you need a token redacted, have them chuck a literal spear during the mining revolt. God damn it, dude. Yep, highly uncomfortable, thanks. It'd be so funny if he was blown to pieces, and then someone swore he'd avenge him. That was the one role he would allow for black people in fiction, because he thought it was a funny cliche. The Black Panther who gets killed and then avenged. Is that funny? I don't get it. I'll be real honest to say I didn't even know that was a cliche. He wasn't happy when he found out that the Martian rebel leader was a woman. Oh, he tried to make it work for his delicate macho sensibilities. Since you don't know anything about these heifers, I'll tell you the realistic way she got there. Slept her way up. Maybe that scar of hers? Yeah, she did have a cliche scar, forgive me. Maybe it was from some space STD. That'd be so freaking funny. Space STDs? Her face is pockmarked because of space herpes? Maybe it could be funny. You could swing it. But yeah, the part about sleeping her way up, that ain't gonna fly. At some point during the editing, I asked him, exhausted with the requested changes, what the story was supposed to be about. Mine was a crappy first attempt, sure, but I was at least trying to have some thematic struggle, recreating the familial drama and rifts created by the United States Civil War. Oh, I like that. That's drawing some interesting lines. Even if it was poorly written, I'd probably read it. His answer was, it's fiction! It doesn't have a point, except entertainment. Can you really possibly believe that? We have literally seen M get mad at fictional stories, right? God, I'm not gonna try and pick his mind apart because that's just gonna break my mind, and I don't need that today. That's why he wrote a proto puppy, probably more rabid puppy than sad puppy. If he ever wrote his own novel, he mostly fed off of other people's imaginations and then demanded changes. It'd be a perfect candidate for right-wing neckbeards to try and brigade into the Hugo Awards. I'll tell you a secret, all the right-wing neckbeards online, they're federal agents. It was proven in a recent Chris Trucker story. I really don't understand why he thought he was capable of editing this. Oh wait, I do know why, because his ego is massive, but completely undeserved. Any piece of fiction is trying to tell a deeper story. You think Silence of the Lambs was about a bunch of serial killers? No, it was about Clarice Starling trying to look for a father figure. She wants it to be her boss, it ends up being Hannibal Lecter. You look at the film through that light, it's a bit more depressing than it would usually be. But whatever, that's about all the energy that I got for M today, so let's get to the lab and then we'll get on back home and get out of here. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, do all them things, you know, check out our links in the description. There are many. Thank you so much to our channel supporters on Patreon and the YouTube channel members as well. Always remember, friends, that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it, and I shall see you in the next one. So until then, friends, bye-bye.